Huge thanks to our sponsors for making ResolveCon 24 possible. Motion VFX makes the best plugins for DaVinci Resolve. They have plugins to quickly add beautiful graphics to any kind of project you're working on, and they're compatible with both Mac and Windows. And right now you can get their mHello 3D for free. This is a pack of super useful 3D shapes that you can add to any video and take your visuals up a notch. Just click right here or the link in the description. And of course, ResolveCon would not be possible without Blackmagic Design. They just came out with the full release of DaVinci Resolve 19. For editing, color, effects, and audio, it's pretty much everything you need to make any kind of project in DaVinci Resolve. You can download DaVinci Resolve 19 right here or in the link in the description. All right, everybody, buckle your seatbelts for Darren Mostyn.
Thanks, Casey. All right, so thanks for inviting me along, Casey, as well. I think it's my 4th ResolveCon now. So I just firstly need to do an apology. I've actually caught COVID. So if I start sneezing and snot coming out my nose and all that stuff, I'll try and mute my mic quickly. But I've just dosed up, so I should be able to get through this pretty fine. So we're going to crack on. For those of you who don't know, version 19 has been announced today. I think that's like the biggest thing going on social media at the minute. So version 19 is officially out at last. Yee! So, but you will also be pleased to know I've not installed it on here because this is all working. I'm sure the full version of it is working an absolute treat, but I wasn't going to go and put extra stress on myself by installing it on here now. So I'm going to install it straight after this session. Can't wait to get going on that. But yeah, the official version's out just before IBC. What do you know? And but everything you see in here, you don't have to worry. I'm using version 19 in here, so everything that I do is going to be in the full version anyway. For those of you who don't know me, my name is Darren Mostyn. I am a professional colorist, you'll be pleased to know. I've been in the broadcast industry for scarily about 30 years now. I won't give you my whole life story, but I'll fast track to the color grading bit. But I started out as an editor and did lots of broadcast editing. But for the last probably, I don't know, 16, 17, 18 years, I have focused mainly on color grading. So I started on Digital Vision Filmmaster. And then when DaVinci Resolve came out, when it was bought by Blackmagic Design, I was one of the first adopters. So I've been on DaVinci Resolve for about 14 years, or as long as it's been going, sharing my knowledge with you all. So I've been on it a long time. I've seen it evolve. So it's really nice to see version 19. I think it was version 6 when I started on it, or version 7. What do I do? I'm a broadcast colorist. So I work mainly for the UK terrestrial TV market. So that's obviously BBC, ITV, Channel 4, Channel 5, all those people. I do a lot of documentary grading. I'm not known for feature film work. I do long form documentaries, a lot of factual crime, a lot of art documentaries, that sort of thing. And I also do a lot of music videos. So those two sort of genres are quite big in what I do. And we do a bit of commercial stuff as well and some corporate stuff. So, but the main thing I'm doing is I'm constantly using a fixed node tree. So what I want to show you, this one's entitled My Perfect Node Tree. But what I want to do is complement that. I'm going to give you my node tree. Obviously, there's many different node trees out there, especially if you look at YouTube. So obviously, YouTube was started because COVID, which I've now got, actually, ironically. But all the work stopped here when we went into lockdown. So that's why I started the YouTube channel. And obviously, the rest is pretty much history. But yeah, so I'm going to show you what I call my perfect node tree. But there are many different node trees on YouTube. If you follow other people, you'll see that. So I'm going to show you my slant on it. But we're going to do this in the next sort of 45 minutes or so. I'm going to literally build one from scratch. So I'm going to show you exactly how it works. So if you are a complete beginner here, I'm going to handhold you through how it works. I'm going to show you some stuff for more advanced people in this session as well. But you will be able to follow along. So we're going to look at building one from scratch. We're going to look at basic color management in there as well. I'm not going deep in color management. I'm going to show you the exact color management that I work with, which again is pretty well documented on my channel. I'm going to show you a common question I get asked is, what do you do if you don't know what the camera source is? So if you have no idea what your camera footage is, how do you work with that? I'm going to show you what to do in that. So I'm trying to give away a few good little secrets and tips here. And I'm also going to reveal an actual broadcast job. Okay, so this is something I don't do very often. This is something I kind of reserve for, oops, my timeline's running away with me here. So I'm going to show you an actual broadcast job. So we're going to build this node tree. I'm going to show you sort of my perfect node tree. And then I'm going to show you to show you that it's actually used on my broadcast programs. And also, just to add to this, I'm going to work slightly different than I normally do because I'm not going to use any plugins. Okay, so people who follow my channel know that I'm a big fan of mononodes and dehancer and things like that. I'm going to do this entirely using just the features that are in DaVinci Resolve. So it gives you all a sort of good opportunity to see how I would do that. So we're going to be looking at things like the film look creator, the color slice, that sort of thing. I saw someone mention that in the comments earlier while I was waiting to come on. Am I going to do it? So I will show you that. And but I just also say what I'm going to do here does require Studio. Most of this you can do without Studio. For those of you who haven't got Studio yet, you are absolutely mad. I have no idea why people have not got Studio, but I will just add that things like the film look creator are part of Studio. So there are ways of doing it without that, but I'm not going to show you that. So you don't need plugins, but you're going to need Studio at least. What else? Just checking I'm there. Yeah, so the advantages, just before I sort of show you my actual time, so what are the advantages of a fixed notary and my perfect notary that I'm going to show you? Really, it's about speed. So as a documentary colorist, I have to grade something like 300, 400, even 500 shots a day, maybe. Okay, this needs speed, and the fixed notary really helps me fine tune this and gives me the power to work on a lot of things that I wouldn't have been able to do if I didn't have a fixed notary. And I'm going to show you what this is. It gives you consistent grades. So my grading, everything looks consistent and coherent, and that is because I'm using this fixed notary. It really helps. It keeps me disciplined. So when I'm under a bit of pressure, I might be working with a new director, it keeps me calm and just gives me a proper roadmap of what to do to color grade. It keeps my image quality its absolute premium best. Okay, the order in which I do things in here is keeping my quality A1 throughout. That is a big part of being a colorist, is looking after your footage. Okay, I shouldn't be doing anything to damage the footage. I might not necessarily be giving it the best look, but I'm certainly not damaging it. Okay, that's one of the main things that I really sort of pride myself on. And the other thing with this fixed notary that I'm going to show you, this way of working, is it works on any camera format. So it doesn't matter whether you're working with ARRI. So people say to me like, oh, you've just shown me how to color grade for beginners using ARRI. It doesn't matter. It's the same principle, whether it's ARRI, Canon, Sony. I'm going to show you how to grade even if it's not, if it's off your phone. It might just be Rec 709. It's not even a camera profile. So I'm going to show you all that in this session. So I guess let's get on with it. So let me just grab a little bit of water. All right, so what we've got here is this is what we're going to build. Okay, so this is a fixed notary. It's a slightly cut down version of the main one I do, but you're going to see that when I show you my broadcast notary. But this is a very good fixed notary. And the idea of this session, once we finish the session, is that you can go away and actually build your own. But I want to show you why this one is a perfect one for me. All right, down here as well. So this is the notary we're going to build. And down here, just to show you the footage that I've got this sort of zoom in mouse thing. But this is a scene from a music video that I graded by a fantastic band called Delta Sleep, if you want to check those out. But this is all shot Canon, apart from one shot. So I'm going to show you how to mix those resolutions, those camera color spaces. Down here, we've got some Blackmagic footage. We've got some more Canon. This is Rec 709. We've got some ARRI. So we're mixing up the flavors. So I'm going to show you how this fixed notary works with lots of different flavors. All right. So I think the best thing to do is let's just get rid of that. I'm going to do a little bit of work on my panel. I don't think you can see the whole panel in here, but it's just for speed. But I'll try and do most of it in the interface. But some things I'm just going to grab my panel, if that's all right. Okay, so starting off, first thing we need to look at is our color management. Okay, so we're always working in color managed workflows. So I'm going to go down to my project settings and just show you what I've got set here. Our color management is currently set to basically not color management, okay, to contradict myself. Color management automatic would be DaVinci YRGB color managed or one of the ACEs. And I've just done a video on this very recently, so you can check that out, DaVinci versus ACEs. But I'm going to work in the DaVinci YRGB setting, which means if I want to work color managed, I have to use color space transforms. And that's how we're going to build this notary up, okay? My timeline color space is DaVinci Wide Gamut Intermediate. This is something that I've set, okay? This means my timeline color space is a much larger color space than Rec 709, and that's what I want. The theory behind my fixed notary is we send everything up to a larger color space, work in that color space and bring it back down again. But the timeline color space means the tools will behave using DaVinci wide gamut as a color space. That determines how they are mapped for things like contrast and saturation using some of the different tools. Some of these tools are what's called color space aware. So that is really what that is doing. And my output color space is Rec 709 Gamma 2.4 because I'm going to broadcast spec. My color grading monitor is set to Gamma 2.4. That means my output needs to be Gamma 2.4. If you're working for the web, so this is for television delivery, if you're working for the web, you would set that to Gamma 2.2, but make sure that your monitor that you're working with, your calibrated monitor, is also set to Gamma 2.2. There's no point in having one of them at 2.4 and one of them at 2.2 because you're not seeing for real. So basically, whatever your output color space needs to match your monitor color space. All right, so that's done. So actually, nothing's happening here. I'm looking at this in log, Canon C-Log color space, and it's not very easy to grade. So what we're going to do is build up our first node. So I'm going to get to my effects, and I'm going to grab here a color space transform. All right, and this is where we're doing our color management. So this is really well documented on my channel. And so I'm going to go into here. Now, this is from Canon, and it's C-Log 3. I know that because I graded this job myself, but also I was told that's what it is. So it's going to Canon Log 3, and I'm going to show you later what to do if you don't know what it is. And then I'm going to get to my output color space, and we're going to send everything up to DaVinci wide gamut. The reason for that, as I explained, it's a much larger working color space. It's a nicer color space to work in. Everything I do is in that huge, large DaVinci wide gamut and wide and intermediate gamut. Right, leave these as default for now. Right, that's my first CSC. So I'm just going to label that. This is to DaVinci wide gamut. Okay, I'm going to add another serial. I'm going to use Option S to do that. And we're building up our first node tree. I'm going to put this right at the end, and I'm going to grab another color space transform. We've got here our camera color space going to DaVinci wide gamut. This one will never change. This is always going to be DaVinci wide gamut and DaVinci intermediate. So that's our color space that we're working in here in the middle. And our output color space is going to be whatever we need it to be. So this is going to be Rec 709, and it's going to be Gamma 2.4. Now, because I'm using a CST workflow, this output here is overriding the output that's set in the project settings here. And I'll explain that a bit later as to what the difference between this and this is. Okay, but this is now overriding that. If I wanted to go to 2.2, let me show you the difference. There, you see it's just slightly darker in there. Okay, so I'm going Gamma 2.4, which is why my monitor needs to match. All right, so let's just label this one. I'm going to try and be good with my labeling, and this is 2709. Right. Okay, so we've got that going. So now we can just start our grade. Now, the reason I've put this on early is because if I just switch that off, this means I'm grading. So on my monitor, this means I'm grading in DaVinci wide gamut color space. I can't set that as a color space on my display. Displays don't display DaVinci wide gamut. It's too large a color space for any display to handle. So my display is currently set to Rec 709 Gamma 2.4. So that's why I need this on first, even though I'm going to grade underneath it. That's why I need that on. All right, so let's add another serial. Now, anything I do in here is in DaVinci wide gamut space. Anything in the middle here is DaVinci wide gamut. So what's our first node? I'm going to click on here. I'm going to say exposure balance. All right, so the first thing I do is generally exposure and balance. And because I've got this one on, we're color managed, we're ready to go. So exposure balance could be something like offset. It's a really useful tool to use. You might want to use the HDR tool for that, but I'm just going to do it in here. I'm just going to go to my vector scope and have a quick look here, what's going on. It looks pretty good to me, but let's maybe just have a little move of the offset there. I'm just neutralizing that a little bit. And what I'm going to do, I'm doing this on my panel, but I'm going to enable, let me show you how to do it. If you press the number 3, I can enable and disable that, or you can press Command and D. And one rule I've got is I always check that the image looks better when I've done something. Okay, so as I move forward, it should always look a bit better. Otherwise, don't move forward, okay? Right, let me add another one. Next thing we're going to do is contrast. And to do that, we've got our contrast control up here. So we can just do that. I'm going to go back to my waveform. And we've got our pivot control here, which is basically moving our sort of middle gray point. And another way of doing contrast, if I just go in here, there's many different ways of doing contrast. There's many different ways of doing exposures, many different ways of doing saturation. I'm just going to show you a few. I'm going to just bring down my lift here. And I was watching Daria's fantastic session that she did yesterday, where she was talking about the sort of filmic emulation, where you don't want to be crushing these. So I'm making sure that I always do that as well. But that was a really great session with Daria, so I really enjoyed that. And I'm just going to lift that up a little bit. So that's our contrast done. Let's move on and do the next one, which would be saturation. And let's just add a little bit of saturation in here. I'm just doing this pretty quick now. And then I'm going to add another one, and I'm just building up this node tree. So the next thing I might want to do is, I've got the color slice tool open here. So this is the new version 19 tool. Color slice is giving us density. So let's go straight in for a bit of density. And what I might want to do is have a look at density on their skin. So let's just I'll tell you what I'll try and do. Let's make this a bit bigger. Let me get rid of my gallery for a second. There we go. And so you've got red, skin, yellow. You've got the 6 vectors basically in here. So I'm going to go for the skin one. Excuse me. And I'm just going to push density up in the skin. Something like that. And then I'm going to add another one. So I'm just basically showing you how we build up a look. So this looks looking really nice actually at the moment. So I'm quite pleased with that. Let's just see what it's looking like. If I highlight all of these, let's see what it's looking like. But obviously we want to see it not in its log state. So that's what it's like with the color management on. And that's where we're going. So we're going in the right direction. And maybe to have a look at the sky in here. So I could choose something like the warper. And we go in here. Let's just sample the sky and just change the hue and saturation a little bit of that, something like that. I'm just being careful not to break it too much. This might be a little bit harsh. Let's pull that back. I'm just going to add one more node before I show you how we're going to make this even better. Okay, so what I'm doing at the minute is building up a look in a classic way that people do: 0 node, 0 node, 0 node. And there's a reason why I'm showing you that. So I'm just going to go on here. I'm going to add the film look creator. So again, this is the great new tool in version 19. By default, it throws a pretty heavy look on there. So if you click down here and go to clean slate, they very, I can't think of the right word, but I was very pleased to see that included recently. And let's just put a bit of a film look in there and go for something like Rochester. All right, so something like that. Let's switch that on and off. So that's our filmic look. So what we've done is build up, this looks great. It's a really nice look. And we've done that in a very serial fashion. So the problem with that is that this node affects this node, and then the sum of these 3 nodes affects this node, and then the sum of these 3 here affects this one, these 4, and it goes to the next one, and it goes to the next one. So what we're constantly doing is we're constantly grading on top of the next node, okay? And it's not the most efficient way of doing things, especially to keep things really clean, all right? So what I'm going to do is I'm going to undo some of this. The other thing is putting the film look creator on after we've done the other stuff is not really how I want to work. So I'm just going to backtrack a little bit from this. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to delete this. I'm going to delete this one. I'm just using my backspace. I'm going to delete this one. I'm going to keep these 3 for now because these were good. And I'm going to start building up the node tree that we saw a little bit earlier, make it a little bit more how I want to work. So I'm going to add another serial. And this serial is designed that I'm going to run some parallels off it. So I'm using Option P for parallel. So it's Option S for serial. I'm Mac based, so I don't know what that is in Windows. Perhaps someone could put that in the chat. I'm going to add a few more parallels. Now, this is the bit where you can customize it yourself. I'm going to work with 5 here. Sometimes I work with 6 or 7, but I'm just going to do that. Now, this could be, for example, the top one here could be highlights. This one here might be shadows. Oops, sorry, I pressed the wrong button there. So this one could be shadows. This one here might be, let's do density. That's that color slice that we just used. And this one, let's do the warper again. And this one here could be anything. It could be something like curves. So it might be hue versus saturation, all that sort of stuff. All right, again, I'm not using any plugins for here. My density, I often work with mononodes. My film look creator, I work with Dehancer, but I'm doing it all based on the tools that you've got available in DaVinci Resolve. So after that, I'm going to do another one. I'm going to call this trim. Okay, and what we're going to start doing in a minute is filling all this in so you see how I build up a coherent grade. All right, next thing I want to do is add another serial, which is going to form another set of parallels. Okay, sorry, my COVID's just kicking in. I just need to blow my nose. Right, I hope you didn't hear that. You probably saw it, but I hope you didn't hear that. Right, so what we're going to do here, this is where our power windows are going to happen. All right, so when we're creating a look, we want power windows in there. So I'm going to do power window left. And what I do for speed, when I'm talking about how nodes help you with speed, is I pre-build these shapes in here. So I don't have to ever build them from scratch. They're always in there. So I'm just change my aspect ratio to be high. I always put softness on. I can't remember a time when I've worked with a power window without softness on it. Let me just bring back my gallery here. I just want to bring this down to 50%. I don't need my gallery, sorry. I'm going to move that over here. And that is now a left-hand node. Now I'm going to create another one to the right. So easy. I'm just going to Command C and Command V. I'm going to copy it and just move it over to the right. Change the label. I've assigned a keyboard shortcut of the, I don't know what the key's called, but it's the one next to the Q. It's the tab key to be labeling my nodes. And this one here, I'm going to do it again. So it takes a bit of time to set this up, but once you've got it, I never need to do this ever again. This is going to work across all my projects. So it's about taking the right time to do it now, get everything right, and it will work across all your projects. So let's do power window top. And I'm going to use my pen tool for this one, because often at the top, they'll make it a bit more of a wonky shape. And I can customize all these. It's just a case of I don't have to do this initial bit of drawing and putting it inside and outside. And then I'm going to take this one and I'm going to copy it and I'm going to make that bottom. Okay. Right, so they're now done. So I've got those built in. Next thing we need is, let's come down here. We need to put what I call my texture stuff. So I'm going to add some serials on here, maybe 3. And these I'm just going to leave blank at the moment. I'm going to put one more. No, I'm going to do 3. And on this one here, I'm going to put my film look creator on. So this is where I want to do my filmic look. Okay, let me get this back to fit. The reason I've built these parallels coming off here, okay, is because before, when we built that node tree just going in a linear fashion, serial after serial after serial, is when we were doing our density work and then doing our warper work, the density node was affecting the warper. If I'd have done some power windows, they would be affecting the film look creator. They would be affecting curves, all that sort of stuff. What we want to base our node tree on is that these first 3 nodes here, exposure, contrast, and saturation, okay, exposure, balance, contrast, and saturation, these should be absolutely bang on and right before we move forward. And once we move forward, using highlights here is fed, because it's in a parallel mode, it's fed from this node here. I then don't want any work that I do in the highlights affecting the shadows or the density or the warper. So this one has its own feed from this point. And at this point here, we know it's a great starting point. We know that we've got the image to 99% of its best look already. All the work I do is done here. So that now feeds the shadows. This one feeds density. So they've got their own separate clean feed coming from these, from these 3. Why can't I grab that? These 3 here. Okay. I'm stuck in middle mouse mode. Let's see if I can get out of that. Right, so that's the theory behind that. So what we're going to do is get our film look creator. I'm going to my effects. I'm going to drag film look creator. Now I can't actually grab it, so I'm going to have to middle mouse click and move this over. And then I can drag and drop it on. And we're going to do a clean slate. This means it takes off all the preset settings that are in there. And I'm going to add a bit of a film look. So one that I've been playing around with recently is this Rochester one. As I've documented in my channel, Rochester is the headquarters of Kodak. So we're thinking this is kind of a Kodak nod. And I tend to blend it back a bit. It's quite strong on its own. So I'll just knock this back a little bit. And what we want to do is set up our look. So I'm going to just go to here. By having the film on at the end, we're effectively going to grade under it, because these 3 tools that I've used here, exposure, contrast, and saturation, are now affected by the film look creator. Let me switch that off and let me just label that properly. So whatever setting I've got in here, when I set up my exposure, balance, contrast, and saturation here, this wasn't on. So these might now be slightly different. So I need to revisit these. So let's go back to our waveform and check. Now, obviously this is giving it a look. Let's switch it on and off. Okay, it's definitely affecting my highlights. I can see that they go a little bit creamier and my shadows are going a little bit bluer. So the balance that I have in here might be slightly different. Let me go to my vector scope. And so what I'm doing effectively is what I'm saying here is I'm pushing and pulling. We want the film look creator on first if we're going to use a filmic look. These are blank. They've got the windows on, but I haven't actually done anything in them. They're blank, ready to go, ready for me to start adjusting. If I wanted to put some in there, it's ready to go. I just press that, okay? Now, so let's go back to here. So what I want to do now is we've got that, but I want to save this as a template node graph. I want to be able to use this in all my projects. There's no point in me having it with all these settings on already because these only apply to this one shot. So let's first now build our template that we're going to use. So I'm going to go to my gallery. I've got ResolveCon node tree stills here. So this is my gallery. This is a stills. Right hand click and you say add still album if you want to. I'm going to put it in here. And I'm just going to set this up now. Now, I want Film Look Creator on a node because that's saving me time. I don't want to keep dragging that on each time. It's very likely I'll use it. Like I said, in reality on my projects, I'm using Dehancer, but the Film Look Creator is still new to me. I'm actually really enjoying what it's doing. But what I want to do in its default state is I want it off, just in case I don't want to use it. So I've got it on with a half mix of look. These power windows, I'm happy to keep. All this here has got nothing on it yet. They're just labels. They haven't got anything on. And my saturation has got some saturation on it. So I'm going to reset that. And I'm going to reset the contrast. And I'm going to reset the exposure. The CSTs can stay. Okay. The only thing I'll need to do ever is change the input CST, the camera color space from here to DaVinci Wide Gamut. So they can stay quite happily. So let's save this now as a tree. Now, just before I save it, a good tip is to save it on the node that you're going to work on first because it remembers the last node that was active. So I'm going to highlight exposure balance. Remember, if I'm grading 300 or 400 shots a day, I don't want to keep moving from this node to this node. That's like 400 moves a day. Grab still. This is now our fixed node tree. Okay. And not only that, it's a perfect fixed node tree. Right. So let's get rid of this. And let's imagine now we're starting a job. So I've got a whole scene here. So I'm going to show you how we can grade the whole scene. All right. So what I'm going to do is apply my fixed node tree. There it goes. It's as simple as that. I just middle mouse clicked on that, by the way. I need to just check that I've got the right settings. Yep. Canon to Canon. And in this instance, I do want a filmic look. So I'm going to put my film look creator on. And it's a case now of playing with our exposure. Probably I need to get some contrast in there pretty quick, actually. If I've got film look creator on, I'm going to put my bit of contrast in there first. Let's just do it using this tool. I need my waveform on. While I've got the vector scope up, I'm just going to go to my balance. Let's just check that. Okay, that's looking good. Let's put our waveform on and just check our exposure there. So I'm just looking at the skin tones as well, checking they stay good. And let's go to our saturation. Let's see if we need to add some saturation. I often use HDR saturation as well. Just put a little bit in there. It's probably a little bit hot here, so let's just bring down that. And I'm bearing in mind that I've got Film Look Creator on, so I could go into my Film Look Creator and have a look at this with a bit less filmic look in there, something like that. Now, because I've set that, let's imagine that's the look that we want for this whole scene, or even the whole show. You know, the Film Look Creator might affect the actual whole show. What I need to do now is copy that to this scene before I move on any further, because these are kind of secondaries. This is going to be affected on a shot-by-shot basis. So what I'm going to do is highlight all this scene. I'm going to middle mouse click this one, and it's going to ask me, do I want to replace that? And say yes. And now all this scene has got that really nice look in it. And we've got a really good starting point. So that's 11 shots graded already. They all look pretty good, actually. You might want to look at maybe this shot here. I might want to go to my exposure. But before I do any secondaries, I'm just going to get these all balanced up. Let's just lift it up a little bit there, maybe a little bit of gain. So if I get to my contrast here, just add a little bit of gain. So I'm just getting that balance. And then that shot might work with that shot. So let's just copy that across. And then we go back to here and start looking at the other tools. So we're going to go in now. Now we've got a really nice clean feed going up here. And we're grading under our filmic look. And we're grading under our 709 CST. We can see what's going on our monitor. So I'm going to go straight into, let's have a look at the shadows. I'm going to cool them off a little bit more. So let's go to our log tool. This is a really good place to cool off shadows. Just bring that down a bit. And then we can go to our density tool. Let's have a look at the skin tones again. So let's go to our color slicer. Put a bit more density in there. Let's go to our warper and do what we did to the sky earlier. And So we can click on there, and then let's just add a bit of saturation, change the hue slightly. And there we go, we're building up our look. So that can now be copied across to these scenes here. So I'm going to highlight that one, that one, that one, and it will probably work on that one as well. So copy it across, and now we can see, so you can see now, oh, did that actually copy? No. Bear me a second. There we go, middle mouse click. Right, so these have now got that warp on, as you can see there. And then I'll just adjust them on a shot-by-shot basis. So we've done a kind of group level and then a shot level. Right, there's one more thing to look at in this scene, and that is if we go here, this is from the same music video. It's got the same look that we've created, but it looks really wrong. And the reason for that is this is actually Sony. This is not Canon footage. So what I'm going to do is go into here. I'm going to go to my effects, and we're going to change it to be Sony S-Gamut 3, and it's S-Log 3. And what should happen now, because we're using this fixed notary, and all we're doing is changing the color space, is it's got the same sort of nod that this one has. We might need a little bit more saturation in this one. Obviously, it's a different location as well, but something like that. And let's just check our exposure on here. But we're in the right ballpark. We've got the same filmic look going on. So it's proving to you that just, there you go, that got the same nice hue in the sky. And I might want to just go in here now, go power window top, straight away it's already made for me. Let's bring our gamma down a bit, and there you go, I've got that done. If I want to just change its positioning, really easy. Just move that around a little bit, lift it up a little bit maybe. Let's go on to another one so you can see it, and there we go. All right, so I'm hoping that shows you how that fixed notary really keeps a good coherent look across multiple shots. Let's just show you how that works on other footage as well. So if I click on here, this is our fixed notary, ready to start grading. This is actually shot on Blackmagic, so our camera color space in here is going to be wrong. You could actually set this up as a fixed notary with a generic input color space. If you work a lot with Canon, set it to Canon. If you work a lot with Sony S-Log, you'd probably have this preset to Sony S-Log. But always be aware that you're just going to change this one. So this is actually Blackmagic Design, and it is Film Gen 5. And there we go. That looks absolutely fantastic. And then just start grading. We can put our film look creator on, see if we like it. And yes, we do. So a really easy way of starting. This one here is Canon Log 2, but I'm going to come back to this one. This one here is actually Rec 709. So a question I get asked a lot as well is, what do you do if the images are Rec 709? What's the point in even color managing them? Well, let me show you. The reason I want to color manage them is because I want to keep this fixed notary. I want to keep this order, this workflow. This is what's keeping me disciplined. I'm looking at exposure, then contrast, then saturation. I'm keeping a good, solid workflow, which is keeping my image quality the best it can. And I want to send Rec 709 up to a larger color space and bring it back down again. It all transforms in a good, clean way. DaVinci Resolve is handling that for me in the best way possible using tone mapping and all this sort of stuff. So even as Rec 709, if I switch this node, if I switch the whole lot off, if I press Shift and D, you see the image doesn't actually change because it's Rec 709 already. So we're going Rec 709 up to DaVinci Wide Gamut and back down to Rec 709 again. This shot here is airy, but I think you get the general idea now. So what I'm going to do is go to this shot here, and I just want to show you what to do if you don't know what it is. So I'm going to bring our fixed notary. Okay, this shot, I'm still bypass, sorry, let me get rid of that. This shot here is actually shot on Canon, but let's imagine we don't know what it is. So I'm going to go to my effects. What I normally do is go, okay, it's quite clearly log, but I don't know what log it is. In actual fact, it's Canon Log 2, so let me show you that. That puts it in its right place. But if we didn't know that, I would normally start with something like ARRI. So just pick a good generic, nice, large, wide camera color space. Let's go to ARRI Log C3 and just see what it looks like. And it actually looks okay. Nothing's getting damaged. There's no clipping going on. I could just start grading that. I could just go to my balance here and just start grading away. There's nothing wrong with doing that. If you can't find, and then you try Sony out, try Blackmagic, just try one of the larger color spaces out. If you still can't find what you want, I would recommend that you go to Rec 709 and you want to go, not Gamma 2.4, that's a display output. We're doing from source. So you don't want to pick a Gamma here. You want to go Rec 709 again. Okay, so it's just Rec 709 source. And I would literally start grading. So you go to your exposure balance. Okay, that's not going to work without contrast. Let's get some contrast in there. I'm doing this quite quickly now, but you get that general idea. Go to saturation. Let's add some saturation in there. And there we go. We've got a really good starting point in our fixed notary workflow. So if you don't know, you can always just put it up to Rec 709. Right, let me just take a sip of water. Right, so what I want to do now is show you a real broadcast job, okay? So I want to show you what I'm doing here is real. So I'm going to click down here to my projects, and I'm going to open this one. This is a job I did for ITV Global recently. It's the actual job. This is playing off my server. I'm in my color grading suite at the moment, and you can see here, let me just take that gallery down and get that to best fit there. Let's come off that node here. But you can see here, my fixed node tree is a little bit different than the one we've got. I've got a few more here at this trim point. I didn't really explain what that was. So after you've done your 3 base nodes to get your footage looking the best it can, you then go into fine tuning here, so density and things like that. And this one here might be an overall little trim that you want to do after. The reason for that is once these 3 have been set and you move on to secondaries here, you don't want to change any of these because these are feeding these nodes, remember. So the clean feed from here is being fed. Oh, sorry, I'll switch those off. Okay, so the feed for the density would be coming from these 3. So you don't want to change these. But if you want to make a little change after, click on here, and then we can just say, okay, let's just add a little bit more gain. Okay, and I'm not affecting the feed that these got from these first 3. All right, so that's what this trim's for here. A few power windows here. You can see I've got my dehancer. So this is my filmic look on here. So let's just have a look at that. So that's without dehancer. That's with. We're going to use the film look creator in here. Here I've got halation and bloom on there. So I've got that as a separate node as well on here. And there's my CST. So my first CST going up, just to show you, ARRI to DaVinci Wide Gamut. And then we are here. And we're going DaVinci Wide Gamut down to 7.4. Sorry, 709, 2.4. Let's have a look at one more shot. So we've got another one here. Again, it's very similar structure on my node tree. I get everything right on these first 3. I then branch off into this, what I'm calling secondaries. And I've got some power windows going on here. So let's have a look at what these are doing. Let's click on here. We can disable those. So it's just doing a little bit of work there. So I've just decolored the background here and just put a bit more shape on him. And there's one here called HSV. And what this is doing, it's a way of doing saturation, but using a slightly different technique. And what I can do is this is quite advanced. So I'm just going to show you this quick. I'm not going into too much detail. If you don't get this, don't worry too much. But I can change the color space on a node level and go to HSV instead of RGB. And H would be channel 1, S would be channel 2 saturation, and V value would be channel 3. So what you can do is switch off channels 1 and channels 3. Now that is actually quite fiddly. If I have to do that on 400 shots, that's actually quite fiddly. So this is another example of where my fixed node tree would already have that color space set on one of the nodes, and channel 1 would be off and channel 3 would be off, which means I can go straight away using HSV saturation, which gives you a little bit more subtractive saturation look. And that's probably getting a bit too deep, but that's another good example. All right, so let's go back to my project. So to make those, let me just check something on here. Just check I'm doing good. Yeah. So to actually make those, how much time have I got left? Yeah, I'm bang on time. Right. So if I want to make some of these, what I do in my gallery here, I've got this thing called Stills 1. Okay. And these are little, instead of just always building a fixed node tree with all this stuff on applied but disabled to switch on, sometimes it's easier to just grab what you want. So for example, I've got that HSV node here. So if I want to just do HSV color space for saturation, I can drag this node, let's drop it onto my trim. Right and click on that now, and you'll see that it's automatically changed my color space to HSV, and it's changed my channels. It's taken channel 1 off and channel 3 off, which is the mode I need to be in for HSV to work. Let's simplify that a little bit. Let's say, for example, we've got up here, if I can grab it, sorry, my pen's behaving a little bit weird here. There we go. If I want to put a bit of glow on here, this end bit of my node tree is where I put these things, what I call texture. Okay, so I'm going to grab a glow. Let's just drag and drop it on. This is a preset glow that I've got. That puts a nice little glow on here. And if we go to our effects, now all I've got to do is fine tune it. But I've already set some of the settings in there. So I've set it to soft light. I've set the threshold back. I've already set the global blend back because that's the typical things that I do time after time. So how do we create one of these? We're going to go on to our setting here. And basically I've got a CST going up from ARRI and a CST coming down to 709 so I can view it. I'm going to click on here. Let's apply that glow. And I'm going to make my own here. So I'm going to say, instead of doing that as, that was currently set as soft light, let's set it as overlay. Not overlay. Screen. Okay, I'm going to pull that back here, and then I'm going to global blend that back here. And let's say we want to save that as a preset now. Okay, what I'm going to do is click on here. I'm going to copy it so that we get this nice text effect. Okay, so I'm going to copy that across. There we go. And I'm going to get rid of the ARRI because I don't want that. I'm going to get rid of the CST coming down because I just want it as a single node. I'm going to my editor. I'm going to right-hand click on here. This is a compound clip, so I'm going to open it in timeline. I've pre-made this as a text, and I'm going to call this glow. Oops, glow 2. Let's come back to my color page, and we're going to save that as a still. And there it is. So that's allowing me to use that anytime I want on any shot. So we can go in here. Let's put our glow 2 there, and that's done. So really simple, quick way of doing that. Let me just check my notes, check I've not missed anything, because I think I'm coming up to about my time. Yeah, so in summary, that fixed node tree is going to help you. It's really going to help you with your speed. It keeps your grades consistent. It's good discipline. You're following an order. You're not breaking anything here because you're being fed from this good, solid line. It gives you the best quality for that. You're going to keep your image quality good, and it works with any camera format, even Rec 709. Okay, so I've shown you what to do if you don't know the camera format as well. So I think that's kind of it, really. I think that's my fixed node. So experiment with it, build your own. If you need more here, you might want more power windows. Build your own, play around with it, and yeah.
All right, man. So we got some questions here.
Okay, bring them on.
All right, and I'm looking like a news reporter, but okay, I've broken headphones, everybody. Here we go. Darren, when you color grade documentaries, do you also watch the documentary or just focus on color grading the scenes on mute?
Yeah, no, I watch it. So I'll hopefully watch it before we even start grading. So I know what it's about. I understand it. We know it's the nature of it, the kind of, and then I've got a better idea of where the story's going. I want to see how many sort of different scene changes we've got and that sort of thing. So yeah, very much watch it. We'll build a scene and then we'll play it back. We'll then, before we do the big look, we're going to test that on a few different shots. So if I'm going for a sort of Kodak film emulation, or I'm putting a little bit of split toning in, that kind of thing, we're going to test it out on the main scene. So ideally, if I can see the documentary before, is great. And normally I get a chance to do that because when we've conformed, I try and conform before the client gets here, when possible. But I've then got a chance to watch it. Bear in mind, these are 90-minute docs. But yeah, usually when the edit's locked, I get a link. I can get a good chance to see it. But I do enjoy watching it first.
Awesome. Thank you. All right. Do you prefer to color grade in DaVinci Wide Gamut or ACES, and why?
I prefer to grade in DaVinci Wide Gamut because I like this CST workflow. It's a little bit easier to do. I'm used to it. I like the way the tools behave in DaVinci Wide Gamut. They behave slightly different in ACES. I think this is probably more down to the fact I've been using Resolve for 14 years. I've been in DaVinci Wide Gamut for about 7 since it's been around. ACES is a workflow that I've just been playing with recently. I've actually just done a YouTube video on ACES. So it's just, I'm not as quick. I kind of know where my controls are going in DaVinci Wide Gamut. You can work with DaVinci Wide Gamut timeline settings in ACES, but at the moment, there's no need for me to be in ACES. I'm not doing Netflix shows. I'm doing, all the BBC documentaries that we're doing. All that stuff is not needing an ACES workflow.
Yeah. All right. As a YouTuber releasing one video a week, what would you include in your color node tree?
Okay, I wish it was me releasing one a week.
Yes.
What would I have in my node sheet? Do you know what? My YouTube videos, I don't actually grade that much. Sometimes I'll just pop the color a little bit, but I don't actually grade it that much. I think you need a really simple node structure. I think I would even say like those first three, you're not going to start wanting to put film look creator on there and all that stuff. If you're talking about like for the studio feed, I guess you're talking about like the feed you're looking at now is actually my YouTube camera. I don't do too much. I mean, this is live. It looks pretty much the same, I think, as what goes out on my YouTube channel. I don't do a lot to it. Keep it simple, especially if you're getting one out a week. The last thing you want to be doing is color grading.
Yeah. Well, I mean, I think of like YouTubers that, are doing vlogs and things like that, where it's more of a documentary style.
Okay, I see. In that case, I would follow this node tree. Now, that's a very good point, because this node tree's got, let's argue, 15, 20 nodes on it. I don't have to use them. The nodes are there already, ready for me to switch on if I need them. Invariably, I'm going to get that with the first three nodes. So I'm going to get what I want with the first three nodes. If I then just fancy a bit of density, it's already the node set up. If I want a quick power window, I just switch. I don't even have to switch the power window on. I'm just click on the power window that I've got set, and maybe adjust gamma or offset, and that's going to give me what I want. So it's just very, very quick way of working. But I use that fixed node tree for everything, even if I just adjust the first node.
Yeah.
The other nodes aren't doing any harm. They're just sat there. It's not like it's dirtying the feed.
Yeah. I mean, because you don't have to use them all.
No, if they don't do anything, they're just bypassed. So it's doing absolutely no harm. It also means I've got my CSTs in place. So I'm already in 709. I'm ready to go. But I never work without color management. So even if as I explained, even if I don't know what color management to set it to, it's still color managed to a point that I'm going to start it in Rec 709 and still send it up to DaVinci Wide Gamut.
Where would you put noise reduction into the tree? You might have gone over.
All right. That's a really good question. Actually, can I show you that?
Absolutely.
Yeah. Okay. So I'm going to go to my node tree. Let's go back to this shot that we were grading back here, which looks a bit weird now. Which actually jarring me a bit. Let's just pull that sky back a bit. I think that's what's doing it. Right. So noise reduction. Yeah, this is a great one. Now, normally I would put this before even my CST. Okay. So I want it early in the pipeline. All right. It can go after your first CST if you want, but I want it at early stage. So I'm going to go down here. And I've actually got one pre-made. So obviously when you apply noise reduction, you've got a lot of work to do in here. So you've got to set, there's nothing set at all. So you've got to go frames, add some frames. You've got to then say, let me do it. You can say better and then enhance. So you've got this new on ultra noise reduction that would give you a one-stop shop. Actually, that is great. But what I've got, let me just reset that, is I've got one pre-built in these single nodes that I've just shown you. And I can just drag, and I don't use noise reduction a lot. I really try and avoid it, but I can drop it in by, I knew that I'd do that. Let me just move this out of the way a little bit. Okay, so I'm going to grab and drag and drop it on there. There you go. So that's now in, and it's got some noise reduction settings on there. All I've got to do now is start playing with it. I also wouldn't have a problem with it being after the first CST, so you can see what's going on, but you're basically grading under the Rec 709 anyway, so this is fine. I also work in groups, so what you're seeing here is an easy way of explaining things, but often my CST I would group scenes by camera and by camera and scene. So all my Canon stuff would be in a scene. This one that was Sony would be in a separate group of the Sony footage. And then pre-group, I don't want to go into this too detailed because there's a lot to cram into a 45-minute session, but pre-group, my DaVinci Wide Gamut here, my CST, sorry, would be Canon. The other group would be Sony. So they're already grouped and they've already got that color space transform on. So that's one step I don't have to do step by step.
Sure.
To get around that, if you don't want to work groups, you maybe have a fixed node tree for Canon, a fixed node tree for Sony, a fixed node tree for Arri. That's another way of working. But yeah, my noise reduction, I'm always going to try it out before, certainly not after. It's going to really flatten your image after, but I just try and avoid it. If I use it, I'm using it very, very sparingly.
Great. All right. What is the difference between timeline color space in project settings and the working color space you set?
That is a great question. Okay. Let me just get rid of this noise reduction. It's going to slow my system down. Just checking the question. Yeah. So what's the difference between the project settings ones and the ones I'm setting in the CSTs? Yeah. Okay. Right. In here, the color management here, the timeline color space setting in here is the default setting for the tools that I'm using when I'm doing my color grading. Okay. So for example, the HDR tool, for example, is a color space aware tool, which means as soon as I start using that tool, let me just close this down again. Let's just click on highlights here. Let's go to my HDR tool. And if I want to work in light, okay, so highlights, so working light, let's have a look what's included in that. Yeah, it's pretty good already. So I could make adjustments to this, but let's just take that. So any adjustment I'm making here, I'd normally be doing this on the panel, obviously, but let's say we just want to warm up those highlights a little bit. This is happening in DaVinci wide gamut timeline color space because this is a color space aware tool. I can change that in here. Okay, so use timeline. Okay, DaVinci wide gamut. I can change that. It could work in ACES, for example. It could work in ARRI color space. It's quite technical and quite deep, but let me show you something else. The main question people have is this output color space, Rec 79 Gamma 2.4. If I change that, nothing's going to happen. All right, watch this. I'm going to change it to be P3 DCI even. And press save. Nothing happens to my image. Okay, so what's going on with that? Why is that? P3 DCI is a completely different color space to Rec 709. So I'm going to put it back to Rec 709, Gamma 2.4, because that's my output. The output color space is actually being determined by the CST because I'm in non-color managed workflow and I'm using CSTs to get me where I want to be. So if I go to my effect, my output color space is controlled here. Now, if I change this to Gamma 2.2, which is even more subtle than DCI, see my image change. Okay, can you see that? I'll do it again, 2.4. Yeah. Okay, so that's changes. So because this, my color management is happening here. So what's the point of this? Well, this determines a default behavior. Okay, we've overwritten default behavior because we've got CSTs, but also when you go to deliver, the tagging of this clip is determined by here, by default, the color space tag is the same as the project. So that means when this is exported, it will have a tag of Gamma 2.4, which means certain applications will recognize that it should be in the 2.4 setting, not the 2.2 setting, i.e. web versus TV. So that is where that does get involved.
All right. Yeah, that's great. That's
down to that. Yeah.
Yeah, I think that clarifies things a lot. All right. If
time sorry to interrupt. Just a lot of the, including the film look creator, a lot of the effects that you use from the effects library have a behavior where the color space is used timeline. So I want that to be in DaVinci wide gamut color space because that's what I'm operating in here. So that is where that's coming in.
Yeah. Yeah.
All right.
Makes sense. That's awesome. Okay. Another question. The node tree gives you consistency, but do you have some type of anchored target for whites or blacks, some type of QC before rendering?
I'm certainly not QC. I'm keeping an eye on my scopes all the time. So I'm manually QCing this. One tip I give to people, there is a broadcast safe down here. Do not use that broadcast safe. It's absolute garbage. It was just going to clip everything. Okay. So I'm very aware when my images are clipping. I don't mind clipping highlights. I think, again, Daria covered this yesterday when she was looking at sort of filmic things. I don't know. When DPs are in here and they're like, oh, can you bring all that information back in that window that's gone? I think it looks better without it sometimes. You know, if the highlights are gone, that's fine, but certainly not crushing my blacks. But I'm certainly keeping an eye on my legal levels. Does that answer that question? Sorry, I've half forgotten the question.
Yeah, I think so.
Yeah. Okay.
Yeah. All right. Let's see. We got time for one or two more here. What process do you use to decide on a look with a client? A lot of back and forth. All your stuff looks great, but I'm sure your documentary clients want a different, somewhat different than others.
Yeah, it's a great question. So, I mean, I do a lot of factual crime documentaries. They don't want a happy, cheery look. Normally, it's normally murdered people, things like that.
not so great.
So yeah, so it's pretty. So the conversation there is how dark do we want to go?
Yeah.
A lot of that is like the last one I did, police body cam footage. You know, a lot. In fact, the very last one I did is, and it's not broadcast yet, but it's just been graded. There's a lot of TikTok footage in it. You really don't want to really touch this stuff. You know, this is going to break really quick. You know, police body cam footage is about as low as it gets. followed very closely by TikTok footage. But yeah, I would try out a few looks. So obviously I'm working with Dehancer is what gives me my main look. I'm very used to the different settings in there. How cool do we want the shadows? How warm do we want it? And then, like I said earlier, we're going to try that out in a few different scenes and just check that look really works. The music videos is a bit more fun. Did they say documentary specifically? But obviously the music videos, that's a very different world. That is, we're looking at whether we want opposing color contrast, whether we want all warm, everything sits in the sort of warm quadrants of the vector scope. It's much more fun. It's that's where we can really go for it. The documentaries is often a pretty clean look. If I'm doing art documentaries, we're trying to stay very faithful to the art that we're talking about. I do a lot of art docs. But yeah, we can try a few out. And I mean, my directs, I work with my clients are pretty regular, so we kind of know what I want. I mean, sometimes they don't even come.
Sure.
It's nice when they do. And I normally try and get them to come in at least to start with. Let's just get the look going. Most of the look creation will be spent on interviews. So obviously during a documentary, we're normally interviewing key subjects who are talking about the crime or the art or whatever. They will be in a set space. They'll appear maybe 30 times in the documentary. We give that a lot more love. That will have a lot more power windows than just the regular footage that's making up the bulk of the documentary. Yeah. But bear in mind, I've got to get through maybe 1,000 shots in a couple of days. So we're going to spend a bit of time getting that look, and then I've just got to crack on with it.
Yeah.
Which is the speed element of this fixed notary.
Yeah. I love that. Well, Darren, this has been really amazing, man. Thank you so much for sharing all your knowledge with everyone. And I know a lot of people are going to benefit from this. This is so cool.